coming to our LPNA meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order, and I'm Karen Lattin, I'm the Vice President. I think one of the first things we're going to do is get to the business of our elections, and I'm going to have Barbara come up and introduce everybody. She's going to be handling that part of things. And can we get the slide up? Greg, did you put the slides?
It's been so far right before you have to exit the door.
See who we're electing. Well, okay, does anybody not have a piece of paper? Because I put it on the back. I need to get his email. Yeah, so. Okay. Anybody not have an agenda?
What's with the old fashioned?
Yeah.
We need some agendas.
Her. Can you pass out people that don't have agendas?
Where are the agendas, please?
So, raise your hand if you need an agenda.
There you go, no problem.
It's on the back.
What's that? No, there's no.
And so this is our annual election. We elect annually for the term of office beginning January 1st. And all of the members of the current board have graciously renominated themselves, with the exception of Amy, our treasurer, sitting there dutifully taking minutes, secretary, who has commitments next year. That means that she won't be able to serve next year. So we are very sorry.
Sad.
Very sad that Amy will not be able to help us next year.
Amy, we won't need.
So that means we have an opening, and under the bylaws, what we can do is once the first board has its first meeting in January, if we find someone who wants to be secretary, and we are looking for people, person to be who's interested in being secretary, then the board can nominate that person, and that person can serve, and they would get ratified by a vote of the members at the next member meeting. So the members do ultimately get to approve the person that the board nominates. We're going to do the election by show of hands, but first I'm going to introduce the people who are running for re-election. The first person is our president, Greg Peck, who many of you know. Stand up, wave, Greg. And our Vice President, Karen Lattin, and I'm the treasurer, Barbara Pack, and Amy, unfortunately, is not. A member at large, Alan Chan, who does our videoing and is our webmaster, and our member at large, Herb Bowen at the back, who is our parks and agitator, Parks and Recreation agitator.
They love me.
They do, actually.
Yeah.
We work very closely with the park, and when we get a grant for the city, a significant portion of it goes to making improvements in the park. So, since these people are running opposed, it'll be more efficient if we just vote once as a slate. So I'm going to make a motion that we're going to vote as a slate. Somebody second the motion? Okay. And everybody agree we're going to vote as a slate?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Okay. So now we're actually voting to elect, okay? So now I'm calling the motion to elect the slate of officers as presented. All in favor? Aye.
There you go.
Aye. Yes, vote for yourself. Anybody opposed? No, then you're unanimously.
Okay, so the next order of business is we have a presentation from Josh Broussard.
It's a tricky one, Bruce.
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 Bruce, that's right. We
Yes.
should have had that.
Good stuff,
And
Bruce.
Not the same.
Ramona.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to present on Saturday Spotlight, which is a local nonprofit news organization that's recently been formed, and we'll let them present to you and introduce that new news service to you.
All right.
Josh and Ramona.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, Karen.
Hi,
Good to
I'm so
see you.
sorry.
I'm so sorry. How are you? Nice to see you. I'm so sorry.
Where's the chair? You sit here, we can cuddle.
I just feel like
Need his water bottle.
you are yeah. You first, yeah. It's harder now.
Exactly. Sit together. My wife stand up.
Thank you, Greg.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Karen, for the warm introduction, and thanks, Greg, for having us come out tonight. And good to see some familiar faces tonight. Josh Bruce, I used to work for Councilmember Austin Holra here in District 2 several years ago, and had a pleasure working with a lot of you here. So thanks for all your great work in the community, and great to see a lot of you who are still engaged and coming out to meetings like this. So thanks again for your leadership. My wife, Ramona Vargas, may recognize her byline. She served as the City Hall reporter for the Mercury News for 3 years. So the two of us actually combined forces to start San Jose Spotlight. We launched last January 2019. And who here's actually heard of San Jose Spotlight or get our daily newsletter? All right, thank you. Well, we appreciate that. Thanks for reading and following our work. And we'll talk about the
Yeah, absolutely. As Josh said, thank you so much for having us here tonight. We know you have a lot of important business to get to, so we appreciate the time. My name is Ramona Vargas, and I've worked as a professional journalist for over 10 years, covering politics and government. And 3 of those years were spent at the Mercury News, as Josh mentioned, covering San Jose City Hall, the Mayor's Office, City Council. And throughout those 3 years working at the San Jose Mercury News, it was San Jose back then, now the Mercury News, we saw 4 rounds of layoffs. And every single time we thought, okay, there's just no possible way that they could lay off any more reporters because we were down to a skeleton staff. At some point we had, I think, 4 or 5 reporters covering the entire city of San Jose, which is over 1 million residents. Sure enough, they'd find a way to pull us into a conference room and cut more jobs and force people to take buyouts and layoffs. Essentially, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists had to take buyouts and layoffs. So we saw this troubling trend, not just here in San Jose, but across the country. And a big part of that is the fact that the traditional model of journalism, which is selling ads, selling advertisements in the print edition, is no longer working. It's a broken model. And so we really got to think about the future of journalism and how do we fund this? If people are no longer buying ads, we've got to come up with innovative ways to fund journalism. And the nonprofit news model is the fastest growing model in the country. And we'll talk a little bit about how it works and why it's successful. Perfect. So here's our vision and our mission. So San Jose Spotlight, as Josh mentioned, is the city's first nonprofit, community-supported digital news organization. So it's a website, it's sanjosespotlight.com. There's no print product, everything is online and on your phone. And we believe that we've already changed the face of local journalism by providing a source for independent, ethical, and unbiased political and business news coverage. So we talked a little bit about, really quickly about kind of the ad revenue model and how it's broken. It no longer works because people don't buy ads in the print paper anymore. When they want to sell a car, for example, or buy a car, they go to the internet, they go online. But the other crisis that we have in our industry, my industry, is a crisis of trust. And helping people understand who to trust, how to understand what is news and what is opinion. And that's a big part of delivering reliable, ethical, unbiased political news coverage. So we'll talk about, again, how we do that as well. And finally, San Jose Spotlight will fill the gap left by a shrinking media industry, which we just talked about, by providing an innovative and sustainable model for delivering reliable, truthful news to the nation's largest city. That's what we're hoping to accomplish.
And as mentioned, so we're a true nonprofit organization, and it's a new concept to San Jose, the fastest growing trend in journalism nationwide. Throughout the country now, there are 250 nonprofit newsrooms throughout the U.S. Like any nonprofit, we're supported 100% by donations and contributions, and all are publicly reported through the IRS filings, and we're also listed on our website. So anybody who contributed, whether it's $10,000 or $1, they're all listed on our website. Make sure I have true transparency there. As far as generating revenue, we have 5 different revenue streams. So they include individual business, sponsorships and donations. Secondly, through foundation grants. Third, through our events. We hold pretty much now monthly events, and they're typically educational forums. And if you're a member, you can actually attend for free. If not, just pay a small fee, about $10 to attend, and that's another way we generate revenue. Fourth is through our membership program, similar to NPR or K Committee, where folks can contribute like X number of dollars either monthly or annually and get member benefits like getting our events for free. Karen, for example, is one of the great members, so thanks for your support. And then fifth is through advertising. And we're actually advertising only on our daily newsletter. And on the website, we want to make sure that all users have a clean, premier user experience. On our daily newsletter, we are taking ads, but it's, again, a very small percentage of what we generate. Of course, readers are all encouraged to join our multi-tiered membership program, which we'll mention later. Again, that's really our path to long-term sustainability, or these ongoing monthly and annual memberships. And again, they're going to keep us running long-term. Of course, all of our staff are paid through these contributions and donations that we receive. And lastly, we, as a nonprofit and part of the Institute for Nonprofit News, they're a nationwide association of all these nonprofit newsrooms. And the requirement to be a member, we actually had to adopt a policy of editorial independence, which is stated on our website, and it states that regardless of how much anyone contributes, it won't be shaping coverage in any fashion. There's a clear firewall between contributions given and coverage.
And this is just a quick look at how we're doing so far. So we launched our website in January, so we've only been around about, 8-10 months now, so it's not been very long at all. We are about to come upon our 1-year anniversary. But here's what we've accomplished in that short period of time. The most important numbers, out of this whole graph to look at is the page views and the users. Users are readers, so we've had over almost 600,000 readers check our website on a daily basis. They come back to us, they're relying on us for local news. And page views, we've had over 1.4 million. That number is actually closer to 1.5 now. This is through October 31st from the time we launched. So it says to me that we are penetrating our market, that we are making a difference, and people are turning to us increasingly for their local news. As we see those cuts I talked about in newsrooms across the country, regional news doesn't get hit, national news doesn't get hit. What gets affected, the first thing that gets cut essentially is the local news. And that's unfortunate, because that's what you need to know to make decisions and understand what's happening in your backyard, what's happening down the street, what the city council is going on, how it affects you, your life, from your wallet and your kids. So that's why it's really important to us to be able to fill that gap. But more important than just the numbers, the next graph will show you some of the impact that we've had. This is what we look at as journalists that make us realize that we're really making a difference in our community. These are 3 organizations much larger than ours who all basically picked up on our story. So San Jose Valley broke the story. We were first. We were the only ones who reported it. And then these 3 organizations came in a day later or a couple days later and essentially followed our work and credited us for breaking the story. So one was, SF Gate, which is the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle, Fox News, National Outlet, and then of course the Mercury News, our local paper. So it just says to me that if we were not here, these stories potentially would go uncovered, and we were the first to break them, so we are really sort of setting that trend. Awesome. Thank you. So, and then here's just a little bit of feedback that we're getting from our readers and from our community. This was completely unsolicited. This is on Twitter. And just people tweeting that they really appreciate the local journalism, the focus on what's happening in San Jose, and just kind of how we take it a step farther to help people understand the issues and do the in-depth reporting. And basically, we pride ourselves in telling those stories that no one else is telling, or telling them in a way that's unique and different.
So I highlighted earlier the events that we host. I mean, we've been doing them on a monthly basis, and not only are they a revenue generator for us, but also it's really part of our core mission is igniting civic engagement, really connecting our readers with local lawmakers and decision makers. And not only are they learning, but they're also connecting with these folks and being able to engage with different influencers here in the South Bay. So here are some photos and flyers for some of the events that we've hosted thus far. Again, they've all been educational forums. The one on the right was the first one we did last February on the downtown elements issue. And we had a panel which included Councilmember Raul Perales from the City Council, Scott Neese, Executive Director of the San Jose Downtown Association, and Kathy Hendricks, who's the Airport Commissioner. They talked about the raising the heights of the downtown buildings. That was something that came to the City Council. Just an opportunity to really educate and engage our readers. This one here was on the left was actually a forum that we held in May during Affordable Housing Week. We partnered with Silicon Valley at Home. It was a homeless prevention panel included Supervisor Dave Cortese, someone else from the County Office of Supportive Housing, a representative from Sacred Heart Community Service, and then a representative from Eastside Union High School District. Councilmember Sergio Jimenez also served on the forum that we had back in August, and Greg came out. It was a forum on the future of County Valley. And we just had one last week with Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco to talk about what the legislature is doing around housing and how to address the Bay Area's housing crisis. And next month on December 4th and 5th, we're having some candidate forums for both local and state races. And actually, if you want to pass around the sign-in sheets, if you want to sign up for our daily newsletter or get more information on our events as well. So this next slide is our company structure. As you know, Ramona and I are both co-founders. So she's serving as our editor. So she's, managing our reporters and managing the content and maintaining the website. And I'm the director of development. So I'm focused more on, raising money and revenue generation and coordinating our events and establishing community partnerships, setting up meetings like this throughout the city. Like any nonprofit, we have a board of directors, which includes stakeholders from various different areas, someone from the business community, labor community, nonprofit community, various ethnic communities, make sure that everyone has a voice at the table. For our staff, collectively, we have 6 reporters. We have 2 full-time reporters, senior reporter and a city hall reporter, and then 4 freelancers, including a reporter in Washington, D.C. who's freelancing and writing, about what's going on, following our local delegation from San Jose, out in Washington. And we also have 5 columnists. They're prominent industry experts in different fields, such as housing and homelessness, land use and development, education, and transportation, and then sustainability.
And real quick, how San Jose has sort of charted its path and how we're different than some of these other organizations that are providing print news coverage here into the South Bay. So these are the 3 organizations that primarily provide print. So we didn't focus on TV or radio, we kind of stuck to our own medium. These are the 3 that provide primarily print coverage of local news to San Jose. The Mercury News, my former employer, Silicon Valley Business Journal, and then Metro Publishing, which also has something called San Jose Inside. It's an online news outlet. And how we're different than the 3 of these, we're the only ones that are focused solely on policy, politics, and government, and specifically on San Jose and the South Bay. And why that's important is because I think that we've seen these organizations, especially with the Mercury News, trying to cover more ground, right? With fewer staff members, they're going regional, they're trying to go bigger. We're saying, let's go smaller. Let's focus on the news, let's focus on what's happening here locally. So we're the only ones that are doing that. We also do not have any ads on our website, which I think is really important. The number one concern and complaint, frankly, that I used to get when I worked at the Mercury News was, people trying to read our stories or my story, and they would get a pop-up ad, and it would take over the entire screen, and you'd try to hit the little X in the corner to get rid of it, and it would crash the whole website. So this causes a lot of frustration with users, and frankly, it turns people off from wanting to engage and read the news. So our website, as Josh mentioned, is clean, it's quick to load, it's user-friendly. And then finally, we do not have a paywall. Does anyone know what that is, a paywall? Basically what it is, basically what it is that when you read a couple of stories, pretty soon you get a pop-up that asks you for your credit card information, and you have to pay to continue reading and to continue to access the information. And for us, it's really important to be able to provide that information free of charge to our readers, to our donors. It's part of our mission to be able to help you understand what's happening at City Hall, what's happening in your government, and to know how that impacts you. So we feel like people from all walks of life, whether they donate or not, should be able to access that information and know what's happening in their neighborhoods. And then we talked quickly about this, but the nonprofit news model, I firmly believe is the future of journalism. I think the days of treating journalism like a business and selling ads to try to pay salaries and keep the lights on, I think are behind us. I think now more than ever people are viewing journalism as a cause, and a cause that we have to rally behind and save if we care about our democracy. So these are some examples of some of the 250 nonprofit newsrooms that are around the country. These are some ones that you've probably heard of: Mother Jones, Cal Matters, Center for Investigative Reporting, and then Nevada Independent, which inspired San Jose Spotlight. So they're all doing great work. They're all nonprofits, and many of these you may have read and didn't even know that they were nonprofits. So it's truly a growing model.
So this last slide here, as I mentioned earlier, our path to long-term sustainability is through our membership program. So if anybody would like to become a member, we have green envelopes here.
They're much lower levels, by the way, these are not.
I can assure you I'm not paying that much.
Sorry. They start at $5 a month all the way to the lowest is $5 a month. I think that presentation was one we had given to a corporate, yeah, so I apologize.
Anyway, so my apologies. So our path to long-term sustainability membership program, and we get levels of those $5 a month. You can attend our events for free, come to exclusive events like our editor's town hall, receive our quarterly exclusive newsletter. But again, all content is free, and of course, we'd love if you all want to sign up to join our mailing list, to receive our daily newsletter, to receive all of our stories, and just really be engaged in local politics, policy, and government.
And then our contact information, I know we've kind of gone over, so we're going to rush this through. There's the website, and then our emails, Josh and I, and then please follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you have story ideas, something that's happening in your area, your neighborhood, something that you think is important that we should be writing about, please email me. We're always looking for ideas. Even positive profiles. We have a feature called In the Spotlight where we just profile people who are doing good things in our community, the unsung heroes. If you have any of those suggestions, please let us know. And I don't know if we have time to take questions, but if we do, we can. And if not, we can, leave some contact. Well, we have the contact picture. Leave some cards, and you guys can get in touch with us. But we really appreciate your time. Yes, sir.
You were a Mercury News reporter. Now you're San Jose Spotlight. I'm very impressed with what you two have accomplished so far.
Thank you so much.
Have you noticed any difference, like when you go to City Hall, like try to talk to politicians, being a Mercury News reporter versus a Spotlight reporter? Do you get any different treatment right now?
That's a good question, and it's a really fair question because I'll be honest, I was worried about that. I was worried about people saying like, "Oh, this isn't legitimate. You can't come to the mayor's, press conference or something like that." But thankfully, no. We've been invited to all of the same events that other press have been invited to. We've been getting access to the same information. We get interviews, one-on-one interviews with Councilman Jimenez, which we really appreciate, with the mayor as well. So I think people are recognizing that there is this huge need and that they are taking it seriously. The website's professional. We list all our donors. We have a board of directors that's very diverse, and they hold us accountable as well. So I think it's helped sort of raise the credibility level where it's not just, this is a blog or something. They take us seriously in the media outlet. So, great question. Yeah. Thank you.
And that's all you say, it's no fake news.
No fake news, I promise. I hate the word fake news.
However, there is some opinion. I mean, there is, but then they're stated as opinions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do have the columnists, as Josh mentioned, who write on topics like transportation, homelessness, housing, education, sustainability. But also we accept op-eds from the public. If you want to submit one, it's something you feel passionate about. But what we do is we make sure that that's labeled very clearly as opinion. It's in a completely different section of the website because we don't want there to be any confusion about, is this news or is this opinion? Is this a reporter or is this a activist? Right? We want to be able to make sure that that line is really clear. So.
I just wanted to say thank you for what you're doing. I think it's important work, especially in today's touchy political climate.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to quote Joseph Pulitzer, who said, "A free republic and a free press rise and fall together."
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. We'll leave some of these up here if you're interested in. Thank you so much for everything, and we appreciate your time.